If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as follow me and subscribe to me on all my other social media platforms. What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am here to do a video I never thought I would find myself doing, and that is a video game review. I was originally going to do this video 5 years ago for the 15th anniversary of this game, but real life was taking a toll on me at the time, and I just didn't have any great ideas in mind for that review. But here we are approaching the 20th anniversary of probably my favorite game of all time, and I'm here to give it an in-depth review. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my 20th anniversary review of WWE Smackdown, Here Comes the Pain. Yeah, this game has been often cited as one of the greatest wrestling games ever created in the history of video games. And I've always been a big fan of this game, but you're going to find out why, as well as an in-depth review about this game. So in the spirit of my good friend Kamikaze Games, I will be doing this review under his original review format from 2013 to 2016. And that review format is, there will be 6 categories I am going to grade this game on. And those categories are gameplay, graphics, sound, soundtrack, menus, and replayability. In this review, I will analyze all 6 of these aspects to see just how well made WWE Smackdown Here Comes the Pain really is. So we kick things off with the first category, and that is gameplay. Now, the most notable difference in the gameplay from WWE Smackdown Here Comes the Pain compared to the predecessor SmackDown Shut Your Mouth is that Shut Your Mouth was a little more arcade-based, whereas Here Comes the Pain was the first step towards the games going down the more simulation-based style of gaming. Now, there are a few new features in this game that helped make it more simulation-based. First, the control scheme of this game went through a huge overhaul compared to the games of the past. The grapple system is more in-depth as you have 4 different grapple types: power, signature, quick, and submission. This game, as well as WWE SmackDown vs. Raw, the successor to this game, they were my favorite control schemes for any wrestling game. While they were a little more complex compared to the early SmackDown games, it is far more simple compared to the control schemes of the games made in the past decade or so. Second, there's a limb damage meter, which was brand new for this game. You start a match with your meter at blue, meaning you're at 100% health. As you take damage in a match, your limb damage meter will soon change colors. There are 3 colors for limb damage: yellow for light damage, orange for moderate damage, and red for severe damage. And actually, while on the subject of the red limb damage, this would be the first WWE video game to feature bloodshed. If your head damage is red and you get hit with a weapon or a high-impact move to the face, you will bleed. That's pretty neat. Speaking of blood, let's talk about the new match types introduced in Here Comes the Pain. There's the first blood match, where the objective is to make your opponent bleed to win the match. Then there's the Divas Bra and Panties matches, where the objective is to strip your opponent's clothes off until they are down to their bra and panties. Yeah, for those who prefer the women to actually wrestle will probably frown upon this match type. But hey, I loved both eras. I loved watching the hottest ladies in wrestling strip for entertainment value, and I also loved to watch the best ladies in the ring square off to be the best, so why can't I have both? I'm just a man, for God's sakes. But I digress. Then the third and new match type that was introduced was the Elimination Chamber match. This match type, if I recall, was the big selling point for me as a 9-year-old kid to get this game, because this game came out less than a year after the first, and still to this day, in my opinion, the best Elimination Chamber match in WWE history. One of the first things I did when I got this game for Christmas in 2003 was play Elimination Chamber matches, and man, it was a blast. All of the chaos and carnage you could cause in the chamber was endless. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about Season Mode. This Season Mode is one of my favorite Season Modes to play in any WWE game, though there are a few downsides to it. First, you only get a 1-year arc, whereas in SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, you had a 2-year arc. Second, you can't run around the arena and outside and interact with superstars like you could in SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. Instead, you have to try and find superstars to chat with through the locker room menu, and most of the time, you have to constantly go to talk to either Eric Bischoff or Stephanie McMahon, depending on the brand that you're on, and then go back to the locker room and then head backstage to even have a slight chance to talk to somebody after the first month. Yeah, the first month of Season Mode is really where you're going to get to talk to wrestlers the most, and then after that, it's a very, very rare occurrence, unless you're just dying to get involved with something backstage, in which case you just have to keep talking to Bischoff and Stephanie over and over and over and over again until Endgame. Yeah, that's pretty tiring and sad, if you ask me. But besides those two flaws, the stories in Season Mode are actually quite variable and diverse. You can get so many different outcomes to so many different stories, such as title shots, defending Jim Ross from Eric Bischoff, forming tag teams, forming factions, rebelling against Vince McMahon, among many other stories that you can do. If you are lucky to find anyone backstage, chances are that they'll want to challenge you to an impromptu match. While they can be a bit annoying, they are worth doing to gain extra money and experience points to build attributes for a wrestler. Hey, speaking of attributes, this would be the first game to introduce the attribute system for the roster. Yes, that exact same attribute system that's been in the games pretty much since then. It all started with Here Comes the Pain. Now, the attributes sections, we got 5 different categories for attributes for a wrestler in the game. Strength, which determines how much damage you can deliver in a match. Submission determines how long you can apply submissions for during a match. Endurance determines how much damage you can take before your limb damage meter changes colors in a match. Technique determines how frequent you can reverse moves in a match. And speed determines how fast you can move in a match. Yeah, pretty straightforward and simple, and then obviously they would just get more and more complicated and just so unnecessarily tedious in the games to follow. Speaking of technique, can I just say that Kurt Angle's technique is super OP in this game? I swear, anytime I play this game on the hardest difficulty and I play a match against Kurt Angle, he ends up reversing 9 out of 10 moves I try to hit him with. It can be a bitch and a half to deal with, but on the bright side, it does give you quite the challenge to see if you can out-grapple one of the greatest of all time. But it's still a bitch and a half to deal with. Now with all that off my chest, let's talk about the roster for this game. This was the largest roster for any WWE game up to this point. 65 wrestlers in total. This would also be the first game to introduce Legends, which has been featured in every game ever since. And while some of the choices for the Legends were really random, like George Steele and Hillbilly Jim, there were others that were quite awesome, like the Road Warriors, Roddy Piper, and even mid-90s Undertaker. Although it does suck that you can't use both versions of the Undertaker in Season Mode. That's a real letdown. Now, as far as any omissions from the roster around this point in the summer to the fall of 2003, I have quite the list here, so listen up. Mark Henry, Molly Holly, Dawn Marie, Jamie Noble, Nydia, Billy Kidman, Billy Gunn, Chuck Palumbo, Nunzio, Johnny Stamboli, Bradshaw, Farouk, Hardcore Holly, Scotty 2 Hotty, Spike Dudley, William Regal, Rene Dupree, Sylvain Grenier, and Gail Kim. They were all missing from this game when they should have been included to help make the roster even bigger. But there were 2 glaring notable omissions from this game that were supposed to be in the game, but were taken out at the last minute. And those 2 names were Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan. Warrior was taken out of the game due to the ongoing legal battle between himself and WWE over the rights to the Ultimate Warrior name, and Hogan was taken out due to his exit from WWE in late summer of 2003. Although there is a really cool Easter egg for Hulk Hogan in this game that they didn't take out. If you start a season mode story and you go to your locker room, you scroll over to the locker room door where the card is. If you look at it really closely and read it, then you will see every name on every match on the card says Hollywood Hulk Hogan. So, there is that, I guess. One of the best things about this game is that almost every wrestler has a unique moveset with animations that are specific to that wrestler. That is something that has become all but lost in the modern games. And that's really all I have to say for the gameplay. The move from arcade to simulation was a huge step forward for these games, the introduction of Legends was a cool throwback, and the season mode still has a lot of cool things going for it. With all those awesome things I've talked about with only a few minor gripes, I think we all know where this score is gonna go. I give WWE Smackdown Here Comes the Pain 10 out of 10 for gameplay. Now we are on to graphics. The graphics of this game are a mixed bag. Yeah, trying to compare the graphics of 2003 to the graphics of today's video games does feel like comparing apples to oranges, but even for 2003, the graphics of Here Comes the Pain were a little bit inconsistent. The arenas and the rings look great, but some of the logos are quite low res. The fans in the crowd look like the product of incestuous lovemaking at night. But perhaps the biggest issue with the graphics are some of the character models of the wrestlers. Most models actually look fantastic. For example, Goldberg, Scott Steiner, Victoria, Kevin Nash, Eddie Guerrero, the Dudley Boys, the Road Warriors, and Rob Van Dam. But then you got others like Hillbilly Jim, Triple H, Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, Rhino, and most especially Christian and Booker T all look really, really weird. Now, I emphasize Christian and Booker T because they were the two wrestlers that I feel have never had a good character model in any WWE game. I mean, hell, take a look at this. Their character models in the TNA Impact game released 5 years later, they looked amazing. But for whatever reason, Ukes and even today with Visual Concepts could not get the models right for these two. I don't know why, but Christian in all these games, he always looks like a damn monkey. And Booker T always looks like a human dog, which is a real shame considering if you look at the models from the TNA game, they look absolutely realistic. Whereas in the WWE games, not so much. But hey, for 2003, it could definitely be worse. I give WWE Smackdown Here Comes the Pain 7 out of 10 for graphics. Now on to sound. Oh, the sounds of Here Comes the Pain. Where to begin? The menu sounds, whenever you go up, down, forward, and backwards, they're really quite nice. While the referees just have one voiceover saying the same things, it's not that bad. But the best part about the sounds of this game is the sounds of impact on the ring mat. They sound quite destructive, which is badass in its own right. I give WWE Smackdown Here Comes the Pain 9 out of 10 for sound. Now on to soundtrack. While there are no licensed songs for the actual soundtrack of the game, the background music was badass. Hell, half of the songs you've been hearing in the background of this video are songs from the game itself. Now, the entrance themes around this time were amazing. However, in this game, there are a few theme songs for wrestlers they did get wrong. Ric Flair comes out to the wrong version of the Evolution theme instead of his classic theme that we all know and love from Ric Flair. Justice for Ric Flair and for Lemmy, for real. RVD comes out to his old WWE theme and not his one-of-a-kind theme. The Dudley Boys come out to their old WWE theme and not the Power Man 5000 song they had. Stacy Keibler comes out to a generic theme and not her Legs theme that Kid Rock did. And finally, Kane comes out to his Attitude Era theme instead of his Finger 11 theme. So yeah, with some people getting the wrong theme songs for this game, it's going to cost this game some points for that. I give WWE Smackdown Here Comes the Pain 8 out of 10 for soundtrack. Up next is menus. You may wonder why I am choosing to review menus for the overall game. I just feel that being able to navigate exactly where you want to get to in a video game should be fluid and simple. Otherwise, you'll end up fiddling around with these things much longer than you want to be. The menus in this game are quite nice, and access to everything is, in fact, fluid and simple. The only downside to the menus, though, is to create a moveset menu. And I'll talk more about that whenever I talk about replayability as well as the epilogue of this video. But yeah, it can be a bit tiring to go through everything and create a moveset, but it's still fun to just marvel at everything, so honestly, that's not much of a problem at all. Honestly, I'm going to give WWE Smackdown Here Comes the Pain 10 out of 10 for menus. And finally, on to our final category, replayability. Well, I've been coming back to this game on and off for the past 20 years, so it clearly has replay value for sure. Now, you may wonder why I go back to this game a lot instead of playing a lot of the modern games of today. I mean, come on, it's outdated. In fact, the only wrestlers in this game that are still competing in WWE or even AEW and Impact are Brock Lesnar, Chris Jericho, Christian, Edge, Goldust, John Cena, Lita, Matt Hardy, Randy Orton, Rey Mysterio, Rhino, Rob Van Dam, Shelton Benjamin, and Trish Stratus, whereas everyone else are either unknown, trainers, retired, or passed away. Hell, WWE doesn't even do First Blood or Braun panty matches anymore. So how can a game this outdated have so much replay value? Well, I pretty much mapped all of that out in the gameplay category. Like I said, the big leap forward to the simulation-based gaming was a huge step for the games. The control scheme is perfect, the matches, depending on the difficulty levels, are quite competitive and can give you a hell of a challenge. The new match types were a welcomed addition, the introductions of the Legends was great, though it would get better as the games went on when it came to introducing Legends, and the season mode was nicely put together, even if it might be the second best season mode behind its predecessor, SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. Hell, you can even discover new things about the game the more you play it, such as this insane garbage can lid catch I pulled off in my collaboration video with Kamikaze Games back in 2020.
Ow! Stolen! Ow! Takes the trash can lid. Whoa! How did I catch that? We're playing Frisbee. What? Wow.
I've kept myself alive with this game throughout the years by now playing it on Twitch for live streams on rare occasions, which are always fun to do. So overall, I give WWE Smackdown Here Comes the Pain 10 out of 10 for replayability. And that's all of my grading criteria out of the way, now time for the final score. But before I do that, let me mention some things that I haven't yet, and there's quite a few. The creation modes return in this game from SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. However, while this creation mode does lack in comparison to the creation modes of modern WWE games, for 2003, it was done quite well. Hell, Create a Wrestler was massively popular during this time frame, when you had old websites that don't exist anymore, like caw.ws. They would have formulas on how to create wrestlers in the game just right, like AJ Styles, Abyss, Christopher Daniels, The Great Muta, among many others. Create an Animation was quite weird, but fun, where you can create your own taunts. This would be the last game to feature Create an Animation, which is sad, because I think Create an Animation would be a great addition to the creation modes of today's games. Create a Moveset was always fun, even if, like I said, it is time-consuming to go through everything to select the moves you want, but it is fun to marvel at all the different move animations in the game. Throughout Season Mode, the money you earn from winning matches can be used to unlock things in the game, such as moves, arenas, legends, attires for the wrestlers. While it can be a bit tedious, it is worth it in the end. There are some crazy yet unrealistic spots you can do in the game, such as this insane spot I pulled from a Twitch live stream 2 years ago. Oh, could this be it? Please let it go through. Please! Yes! Yes, we did it! We did it! And finally, if you complete a year of season mode, you'll get a really cool credits reel that's worth watching through, and it ends with a special rap from John Cena. I can't do that rap justice, so I'm going to suggest you go check it out for yourself or play the game until the end. Now on to the final score. Keep in mind that this is just my opinion and personal experience I have taken from the game. Your game may be broken and or wrong if you have any other experiences. After grading the game over to 6 categories, I have come up with the final score of 10 out of 10. This is still to this day one of the 5 greatest wrestling games of all time, and easily the best PS2 WWE game, period. Everything changed with this game and acted as a perfect foundation for the future games that followed. I have spent so much of my life playing this game on and off for 20 years and have no regrets. This game is a must-play and a must-have for fans of professional wrestling and video games as a whole. With that said, thank you guys so much for watching my 20th anniversary review of WWE Smackdown Here Comes the Pain. Like I said, this is going to be a very rare occurrence on this channel, as I'm pretty much now just a heavy metal channel, but I may throw in these little treats here and there for the subscribers who love pro wrestling and video games every once in a blue moon. But until next time, keep your horns high and your dreams wet.